My name is Claire Rowe, and I learned early that in our family, success came with a dress code, a pedigree, and a LinkedIn profile that could make anyone jealous. My older sister Evelyn was the poster child for that kind of life. She graduated summa cum laude from Wharton, married Derek Langston, a rising star at a top private equity firm, and moved into a glass-walled apartment overlooking San Francisco Bay. Their world was curated, slick, and unshakably smug. Mine was muddy boots, calloused hands, and early mornings at the farmer's market. I married Ben Morales, a quiet man with soil under his fingernails and wisdom in his silence. When I told my family I was leaving my marketing job to restore a run-down piece of farmland in the Midwest with Ben, the silence was deafening. Evelyn had laughed. "You always were the romantic," she said, like it was a character flaw. Our parents said little, but their raised brows and long pauses said enough. They would rather I had followed Evelyn's path, chasing big names and even bigger paychecks. Evelyn made sure to visit once during the first year. She arrived in a designer trench coat and stilettos that sank into the mud of our driveway. Ben offered to carry her luggage. She declined with a tight smile and surveyed the farmhouse like it was a charity project. "This is very you," she said. That night, she posted a picture of our chicken coop with the caption, "Escaping the city for a weekend of rural cosplay." Her followers loved it. I did not. What stung most was not the insult, but how unsurprising it felt. Evelyn had always taken up all the space in the room. In school, she was the president of everything. Our parents boasted about her at every family dinner. "Claire likes plants," they would say about me, then move on to Evelyn's latest promotion. I grew used to being the soft background behind Evelyn's spotlight. When Ben and I got married, we held a simple ceremony under an old oak tree. Evelyn showed up an hour late, said the GPS failed her, and spent most of the ceremony on her phone. She gave us a wine decanter from a store I had never heard of. I had made our own favors from pressed wildflowers and hand-stitched ribbon. She left before dessert, but I was not trying to impress her. Not anymore. Ben and I had a vision. We wanted to build something real, from the soil up. Our land was tired but not hopeless. Like us, it needed time, care, and belief. Evelyn used to say I had settled for less. I never told her that in the quiet of early morning. With dew on the fields and Ben beside me, I felt richer than she ever looked. Still, her voice haunted the spaces in my head where doubt liked to hide. Especially during those first winters when the heater failed, and we huddled near the fireplace to stay warm. Or when the tomatoes wilted from a sudden frost and our hands were raw from the cold. I would hear her voice, playful and cruel. "You could have had more, Claire. You could have had better." But I was learning something Evelyn never had. There was a kind of wealth that came from watching a barren field give life again. A different kind of power in turning compost and grit into harvest. My hands were calloused, but my resolve was sharper than ever. She had the penthouse view. I had the roots. And what Evelyn never understood was this. The deeper the roots, the harder the storm had to work to break you. While Evelyn and Derek soared through their curated version of perfection, Ben and I were knee-deep in something much messier. Slower, and more honest. We spent 3 years coaxing life back into soil that had been overworked and abandoned. Every inch of our land came with its own lesson. We learned how to test acidity, when to rotate crops, how to trap rainwater, and how to work with nature instead of against it. It was not glamorous, but it was ours. In the meantime, Evelyn's life looked like a stock photo reel of opulence. She and Derek traveled to Dubai, skied in Zermatt, and hosted rooftop soirees that made it into local lifestyle magazines. Evelyn never forgot to tag every designer she wore. Their condo looked like it belonged in an architecture digest. When she sent our parents pictures of her latest trip, they responded with heart emojis and breathless praise. When I sent a photo of our first greenhouse frame finally standing, no one replied. But we did not stop. Slowly, things grew. The land responded. Chickens brought eggs, bees brought honey, and little by little, neighbors came by to buy what we had produced. I started posting updates online. And to my surprise, people responded. Not with likes or applause, but with real questions, real interest. That mattered more. Evelyn, of course, still found her moments to strike. She would text me after seeing one of my stories with comments like, "That's adorable." Your little project is growing up. Or once, I admire your commitment to rustic minimalism. It's very brave. I rarely replied. There was no point. She did not understand the language I was speaking. I remember one Thanksgiving vividly. It was the first time our parents agreed to come to the farm for the holiday. I cleaned every corner of the house, baked pies from our own apples, and arranged wildflowers in old jars. Ben prepared a roast using ingredients we had grown or traded for. Evelyn arrived in a tailored coat and sunglasses, looking more like she was attending a Vogue shoot than a family dinner. She poked at the roasted squash. You actually grew this? That seems exhausting. You know Whole Foods delivers now, right? Ben smiled as always. Growing things is never exhausting when it feeds more than just your stomach. Evelyn laughed politely and turned to our father. So, have you seen the terrace in our new place? We just had teak flooring installed. Imported from Thailand. Dad nodded, eyes shining. They did not ask about our bees. Or the grants we had won. Or the CSA program we had launched that fed 30 families. Later that night, as I scraped dishes into the compost bin, I overheard Evelyn talking to Mom. I'm worried about Claire. I mean, what kind of life is this? She's wasting her potential out here in the mud. She could be so much more. That night, I sat on the porch with Ben, staring into the darkness. I wanted to scream, to make them see, but Ben just placed his hand over mine and said, You do not need their validation to make something worthy. We are planting trees, not fireworks. Still, a piece of me longed for acknowledgement. Not praise, just fairness. Just the kind of pride they so easily gave to Evelyn. But the years went by, and we kept working, kept growing. We expanded our acreage, introduced heirloom vegetables, and began partnering with local restaurants. Evelyn continued her climb. Designer handbags, bonus announcements, champagne brunches, all filtered and perfect. And I kept planting, because I believed that one day, something would bloom that even Evelyn could not deny. By the 4th year, our farm had taken on a quiet momentum of its own. We hired 2 part-time workers from the local college. Our honey had been picked up by a regional grocer, and we were beginning to turn a steady profit. It was not flashy, but it was stable. And it was real. Meanwhile, Evelyn's world sparkled brighter than ever, at least on the surface. Her posts became even more frequent. Derek's birthday was celebrated with a watch that cost more than our tractor. Their anniversary included a private yacht tour off the Amalfi Coast. They had moved into a larger penthouse, this one with panoramic views of the bay and an automated lighting system that changed color with the time of day. At our parents' next dinner gathering, I noticed something different. Derek looked thinner, jittery. He was always a high-energy guy, but this time he downed 3 glasses of wine before the appetizers. Evelyn kept interjecting with stories about their weekend in Aspen, their art consultant, their new nutritionist. But her laugh was too loud. Her smile didn't hold. When Derek started talking about his latest investment strategy, his voice took on a sharpness that made the room quiet. We're leveraging 7-to-1 on emerging funds in digital commodities. He explained to my father, who nodded as if he understood. Evelyn cut in with a toast before anyone could ask questions. To growth, she said, her eyes flickering. After dinner, I walked into the kitchen to grab dessert and caught a glimpse of Evelyn's phone buzzing on the counter. The screen lit up with a notification from their bank. Payment overdue, action required. She swiped it away fast, but not before she noticed me noticing. Her smile returned too quickly. I didn't say anything that night. But something in me turned. The Evelyn I had known, who always stood taller, always looked down from a pedestal made of degrees and dollars, suddenly seemed off balance. Like she was standing on sand. Weeks later, she called me out of the blue. Just wanted to check in, she said. Her tone was breezy, too breezy. She asked how the farm was doing, whether we were still playing with the dirt. I answered politely. When I told her we had been approached by a chef from Chicago interested in our produce. She said, that's cute. Trendy. Farm to table is still a thing, huh? Then, a strange pause. Do you think Mom and Dad have much put away? She asked suddenly. Like, liquid savings? I hesitated. I'm not sure. Why? She laughed, high-pitched. No reason. Just, wondering if they're planning something big for their anniversary. I tried to laugh along, but her question stayed with me. That night, I lay awake next to Ben, replaying her voice in my mind. There was a tremor under her confidence. Like a hairline crack in glass. She was hiding something. I just didn't know what. Ben said, quietly, they're stretched too thin. I can tell by how Derek talks. He's not investing. He's gambling. And she's trying to pretend it's all fine. You think they're in trouble? I think they've been in trouble. They're just not ready to admit it. I stared at the ceiling, letting those words settle. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like waiting for something to fall. And I knew the moment would come when the image would shatter. I just didn't know yet how loud the break would be. It was just past midnight when my phone rang. The screen lit up with Evelyn's name, and for a moment, I thought it must be a mistake. Evelyn did not call me. Not when she was sober, not when she was happy, and certainly not in the middle of the night. I answered on the third ring. Her voice was slurred, but not from alcohol alone. There was a crack in it, something raw and unraveling. Claire, she said, too fast. I know it's late. I didn't know who else to call. What's wrong? A long pause. Then a sudden rush of words, tumbling like broken glass. Derek's firm is collapsing. His last 3 big trades went south. All leverage. The bank is freezing our accounts. The condo's in foreclosure. I didn't see it coming. I sat up in bed, cold air settling on my shoulders. How bad is it? She gave a shaky laugh. Bad enough that I'm calling my little sister, the one with the chickens and the compost piles. That bad. She wasn't cruel. Not this time. Just exhausted. Empty. We poured everything into appearances, Claire. Everything. I thought the lifestyle would become real if we could just hold it long enough. But it was all borrowed. All pretend. She fell silent, and I could hear her breathing. Shallow, shaky. Do you need to come here? I asked gently. She didn't answer that. Instead, she whispered, you have land. Good land. It's worth something, right? My heart dropped. I saw where this was going. You're asking me to sell? No, not all of it. Just a piece. A loan. Something to help us reset. A reset? Claire, we're going to lose everything. If Derek can just get through this quarter, if we can show liquidity, his board might give him another chance. I'm not asking for a handout. Just a bridge. I closed my eyes. Images flickered through my mind. Evelyn brushing off my homegrown tomatoes. Calling our life rustic. Joking about mud and tractors. Her always polished nails, the contempt in her voice when she said farm girl. I can't promise anything tonight. I said, you need rest. Call me in the morning. She didn't argue. She just said, okay. Then she hung up. I stared at the ceiling long after the call ended. Ben stirred beside me. Was that Evelyn? I nodded. Is it happening? It's happening. And what do you want to do? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. There was a part of me that wanted to protect her. That remembered the version of Evelyn who held my hand when I was little and scared of thunderstorms. But there was another part, deeper and angrier. That remembered being humiliated at every family gathering. Remembered her laughing at our farm, our life, our worth. She didn't want help. She wanted an exit strategy. A parachute she thought I owed her because I had the one thing she had never valued until she needed it. The ground. The next morning, I made coffee and watched the fog roll across our fields. The land was quiet, resilient, honest. Everything Evelyn's world had never been. Ben stood beside me, hands in his pockets. So? She'll call again today. And? I turned to face him. Then we'll listen. But we won't kneel. The family meeting was set for Saturday afternoon. Our parents insisted on hosting it at their home, the same living room where framed photos of Evelyn's Ivy League graduation and Derek's award dinners lined the mantel. There were no pictures of the farm, not even the one where Ben and I stood grinning beside our first harvest crate, cheeks flushed and arms muddy. As we walked in, I felt the weight of every unspoken judgment that room had held for years. Evelyn sat stiffly on the couch, her shoulders tense, makeup immaculate but her eyes hollow. Derek was beside her, silent and brooding, with a jaw clenched so tightly I could hear it grinding when he shifted. Our parents greeted us nervously, offering coffee and pleasantries as if this were a casual family catch-up. But the air was thick with expectation. When everyone had settled, my father cleared his throat. As you know, Evelyn and Derek are going through a challenging financial period. Claire, your mother and I were hoping you and Ben might consider. He paused, searching for a gentler phrase, assisting them. Evelyn spoke next, her voice unusually measured. We're not asking for charity. Just a small part of your land. A sale. A bridge, like I said. Just to cover the immediate fallout until things stabilize. Derek finally added, it's a smart move. You sell off 20 acres, cover our shortfall, and when we're back on our feet, we can reinvest or even help you upgrade this operation. Ben stayed quiet, his hand lightly resting on my knee. I looked around the room and saw the same dynamics as always. Evelyn in command, Derek the force behind her, and our parents, well-meaning but blind to the imbalance they had enabled. I took a slow breath. The 20 acres you're asking about include our main water retention zone. It's the heart of our irrigation. Selling it would cripple our entire system. Derek scoffed, come on, Claire. It's just dirt. Land is replaceable. Liquidity is not. My voice sharpened, this isn't just dirt. It's where we planted our future. Every inch of it was healed by our hands. Evelyn jumped in, Claire, we wouldn't ask if we had any other option. You know that. We're family. You'd do the same if it were reversed. Would I? I asked, not hiding the edge in my voice. Would you have ever sat in this seat if I were the one drowning? Would you have sold your condo to save my bees? Evelyn looked down. Derek shifted. My father spoke gently. Claire, it's only a portion. You have 80 acres. Can't you spare 20? I stood then, the tremble in my legs the only sign of the storm inside me. It's not about acreage. It's about everything before this. Every time you laughed at what we built. Every time you called it a hobby. Every dinner where you changed the subject when we spoke. And now, you want us to dismantle our livelihood so you can keep chasing a version of success that's already devoured you. Derek's eyes flashed. That's dramatic. You don't understand the markets. You're not qualified to speak on this. Ben finally looked up. And yet, here you are asking us to save you. The room fell silent. My mother looked close to tears. Evelyn's lip trembled. I sat down slowly. I'm not selling. But that doesn't mean we won't help. Just not the way you expect. If you want a way forward, it won't be through a check. It'll be through work. Through humility. Through starting again. The silence was deep now. Not angry. Just stunned. A reckoning had begun. 3 days later, Evelyn arrived at the farm alone. Her SUV was packed with suitcases, carefully labeled boxes, and a few paintings wrapped in blankets. Derek was not with her. He had declined the offer. Said it was beneath him. Said she was making a mistake. She disagreed. She stood at our front gate with swollen eyes and shaking hands but upright, not broken. Just tired of pretending. We helped her settle into the guest cottage at the back of our property, a modest space with a small kitchen. A worn but clean couch, and a view of the orchard that glowed gold in the morning. Her heels stayed in the suitcase. She wore sneakers and jeans by the third day, pulled her hair into a ponytail, and asked where she could help. I gave her the task of inventorying our farm store shelves, assuming she would find it dull and drop out within a week. But she didn't. She showed up every morning, early. She asked questions. She started organizing the online order system, fixing gaps I had long ignored. She labeled jars of honey with a steady hand, redesigned our produce newsletter, and by the second week, suggested an improved packaging system for shipping our value-added goods. We need to look like what we are, she said. A real brand, not a roadside stand with a website. One afternoon, I found her sitting in the field, fingers caked in dirt after helping Ben plant a new row of tomatoes. She looked up at me, laughing softly. I ruined my manicure, and I think I'm proud of it. In the evenings, we sat on the porch outside her cottage, watching the sky bruise into twilight. Evelyn spoke less like the woman I had known, and more like someone searching for solid ground again. She confessed she missed silence. Missed meals that didn't come in takeout bags. Missed not feeling like she had to keep performing every second of the day. Derek, she said one night, never stopped performing. Even alone with me, he was still playing a part. When the show ended, he didn't know what to do. So he left the stage. And me with it. We said little after that. We didn't need to. Something was healing, not just in her, but in us. The sister I had known for so long as a polished reflection of expectation was shedding that skin, painfully and honestly. She joined us for every market, every workshop. She talked to customers like they mattered, not like targets. She started suggesting new partnerships. Maybe a subscription gift box series for holidays. Maybe a summer camp for kids. She wasn't here to survive anymore. She was building. Our parents visited once, cautiously. They brought groceries and awkward apologies. My father helped Ben unload supplies, quieter than usual. My mother stood in the farm store, running her fingers along the shelves Evelyn had arranged. I didn't know she had such a gift for this, she murmured. She didn't either, I said. That night, Ben looked at me across the table. She's not the same. No. But maybe now she's real. Not long after, Evelyn launched a seasonal marketing campaign that brought in more online orders in 1 week than we had processed in a month. We added another shipping day. Hired another hand. We were growing, and this time not just in acreage. Something else was changing too. My resentment, once sharp and protective, began to soften. I had not forgotten the past. But I could see now that Evelyn wasn't asking to erase it. She was trying to rewrite what came next. And for the first time, I wanted to help her do just that. The summer came early that year, bright and demanding. Our fields were full, our CSA program had doubled. And local chefs now called us by name when requesting specific crops. But what marked that season most wasn't the heat or the harvest. It was Evelyn. She no longer looked like someone passing through. She was fully embedded, managing orders, handling vendor relationships, even leading weekend farm tours when Ben and I were too swamped. She had found her rhythm in a world once alien to her. There was mud on her boots and freckles on her shoulders. She didn't hide either. One afternoon, I found her on the barn steps, deep in thought. When I asked what was on her mind, she said quietly, "I never realized how much of my life was built for other people to admire. Nothing I built ever lasted. Not really. Not like this." She gestured toward the rows of sunflowers we had just finished planting. "At least when something fails here, you know why. And you try again. You don't lie about it." We sat in silence for a while, watching the bees move in and out of the hives Ben had reinforced. She added, "I think I used to laugh at this life because I was terrified it might be better than mine. And I couldn't admit that." I didn't respond. Her words were honest. They didn't need affirmation. The turning point came during our annual midsummer harvest dinner. Every year, we invited the community to the farm for an evening of food, music, and gratitude. This year, Evelyn coordinated everything. She arranged the lighting, designed the invitations, organized the vendor partners. She even collaborated with a local chef to curate a 5-course menu using only our produce. The tickets sold out in 2 days. That night, under a canopy of lanterns and fading daylight, people gathered around long tables set between rows of pear trees. Laughter filled the air, clinking glasses, music, and pride. Not showy, not polished. Just quiet, earned pride. Near the end of the evening, Evelyn stood to speak. She wore a simple linen dress, her hair tied back, no jewelry. No mask. "A year ago, I thought I had everything," she began. "And then I lost it. My marriage, my home, my identity. What I didn't know then was that I had been measuring success in borrowed metrics. Numbers that meant nothing once the floor gave out." She glanced at me. "My sister offered me more than a place to stay. She gave me a mirror. And a shovel. And said, 'Start digging.'" The crowd chuckled softly, some knowingly. "This farm taught me something the city never could. Real value isn't in how loudly you say you've made it. It's in how quietly you endure, how persistently you build, how humbly you grow." She raised her glass. "To work that matters. To people who stay. And to second chances, wherever they may sprout." Applause rang out, but all I could hear was my heartbeat. The wall between us had crumbled. Not from apology, but from shared labor, real effort, and time. After the dinner, as we cleared dishes side by side, I asked, "Do you miss any of it?" She paused, drying a glass. "Sometimes. I miss the certainty. The illusion of it, anyway. But not the exhaustion of pretending. Not the fear. Not the cost." She looked around at the lanterns, the trees, the customers still lingering with wine in hand. "This is the first place I've ever felt safe failing. And safe starting over." And I knew then, with more clarity than ever, she was not visiting this life anymore. She was planting roots. Autumn arrived like a quiet affirmation, the air cooler, the trees touched with amber. The farm was the fullest it had ever been. Our name was now printed on menus in 3 cities. Our honey line was being stocked in boutique grocery stores. Evelyn had designed a holiday gift box campaign that sold out in less than a week. But none of that meant as much to me as what I saw each morning: my sister, in worn boots, hauling crates beside me, sleeves rolled up, face open. She had become a fixture here, not as a guest but as a partner. One morning as I walked into the farm store, I found her adjusting the honey shelf, lining up labels with methodical precision. She looked up and grinned. Dad asked if I'd help him start a vegetable bed behind their house. Can you believe it? I laughed, not just at the image of our father in garden gloves but at how much had changed. Evelyn had gone from luxury yachts and portfolio reviews to mulch and seasonal crop charts, and she was proud of it. The transformation wasn't just hers. Our parents visited more often. Dad spent time with Ben, asking about irrigation systems. Mom helped us arrange fresh flowers for the store displays. Their tone had softened. They never said sorry for the years of imbalance. But they showed it in small gestures, in the way they lingered after dinner instead of rushing off to Evelyn's next success. Derek had not reappeared. Evelyn mentioned once, without emotion, that their divorce had finalized quietly. He had moved to Austin, working for a new hedge fund. Still chasing edges, still trying to outrun the collapse. I asked her once if she missed him. She stared at the orchard and said, "I miss the person I thought he was. But not the one he became. And not the person I had to become to keep up with him." That fall, we hosted a harvest festival for the entire region. Hundreds attended. Evelyn coordinated every detail: live music, pumpkin carving, a farm-to-table dinner. At sunset, she stood beside me, watching guests walk between rows of produce, children laughing, locals buying cider and jam. She whispered, "You built all this." I shook my head. "We did." She looked at me then, really looked, and I could see the years of rivalry dissolve. Later that night, as we closed the farm gate, she said something I will never forget. "I used to think strength was about climbing higher. But now I know, it's about standing still, staying in one place long enough to build something that matters. It's about roots." Weeks passed. The farm slowed down with the season. Winter prep began. Evelyn stayed busy planning the next year's strategy, email campaigns, a new beekeeping workshop, and expanding into herbal infusions. She found her calling not in what she could take but in what she could cultivate. On the first snow morning, I watched her walk through the field in a heavy coat, steam rising from her coffee mug. She looked small under the gray sky, but grounded, finally. No more heels, no more spotlight, just a woman who had been broken open by loss and stitched back together by the land. I joined her in silence, standing side by side in the cold. And in that stillness, I realized, we were both different now. Not because one had saved the other, but because, in our own ways, we had learned to stay when it was hard. To build when it hurt. To grow something that no storm could undo. That, I thought, is what success truly is. Not applause, not numbers, but depth. And Evelyn had finally found hers.